to write some notes down how you do this, or whether you think you're just going to remember. What you'll need is the data in front of you as well. So the data is on page 210 of the textbook. 210 of the textbook. Now you might find that because you're using your computer, you don't want to be using the textbook on your computer. I'll pause and wait for you to get sorted. Okay, so in Desmos, what we're going to do, we need to put the data in first. So we're going to add here. I'm going to click add, and what do you think we're going to add? No. Table. Let's add a table. All right. So the X values were which ones? No. They weren't the country. It was GDP. We're not plotting country. Each point will represent a country, but the variables, the X and the Y variables, are GDP and life expectancy. So we're going to put in our values. So 43,000 on this side will be 82. And you just need to fill in all those points. Okay, fill up your table, and I'll pause and do the same. So here's my points. There's nothing on my screen. Why? Okay, so that, by the way, is something that this is the only time I'll tell you. All right? I get it so much. Even when I go into DP and they're on calculators where you do the same thing, people go, it's not working, it's broken, what have I done? Done nothing wrong. Now, what we can do, guys, this is the process. If I was doing it by hand, I would do mentally. Up here, look, can you go to graph settings? All right. And I'm going to change my x-axis to the numbers for my x. I'm going to put 0, and I might have to do it about, it might change it automatically. What's the largest value for x that I have? I think I look at my 102,100. So I'm going to put 103,000. Okay. My y-axis is the age, right? So the youngest we said was 52. So I'm going to put 50. And the oldest, well, I'm just going to put 100. And once I've done that, look, suddenly you can see my points. Now, this is why I said it doesn't really matter on the computer, because I can click and drag, okay? And just rearrange it a little bit. But what I don't want to do is this zooming in and out just using the roller on my mouse or on my using the fingers on the pad, because it just won't be very nice looking. Right? Some of you will say, oh, but why is mine going straight up and yours is going across? They're so different. It is just the scaling that you've used. If you just zoom in with your fingers, you'll get a lot more than you need on one of the axes, and it'll just look, you know, to spread it out, you have to put the values in correctly. Just like you should be picking the same sort of values if you were doing it pen and paper, all right? Hard for this one because it's so big numbers and so small on the Y. All right, yes? What do we put on the Y? Well, I looked at the numbers and I decided the smallest, and you decide. I shouldn't need to tell you that. You should know, find the smallest number and make sure it fits. Find the biggest number and make sure it fits. Yeah? And then afterwards I can drag it around a bit. It doesn't matter exact numbers, or just above or below a little bit. No, it's important that, Sammy, you don't just copy someone else and not understand how they got it. Same with all of you. Don't just copy the numbers that I put down without because next time I'm not going to tell you what numbers to put down. You need to do it for yourself. Okay, over to you. All right, you now have these questions to answer. All right, so we have already talked. It says, do the data points line up perfectly? No, they don't. Yeah. Would it make sense to join the data points?
No.
No. And why not?
Because it goes up and down. Because that would be saying any
Yeah, so if I take, this is the obvious point just to look at. If I wanted to predict a country with $20,000 GDP, if I were to go up and look roughly where it would be, it'd be somewhere in this region, wouldn't it? That would follow the pattern. If I were to draw this line down here, that would be saying there is no choice. It would definitely be at that value on the line. But there are currently no countries with a GDP of 20,000. So I don't know what their life expectancy would be. So I can't put a point there, which means I can't join them with a line, because we've already said a line is what? An infinite number of points. So by joining the line, I'd be basically adding data that I don't actually have and deciding what it would be before I've got any evidence. Right? So we definitely don't join all our points with a line. What pattern can you see? Describe any general trends. Over to you.
The higher the average GDP, the longer life expectancy, to a certain extent where the line lines up.
Okay. Anyone else? Do we agree that life expectancy seems to be going up with GDP, or? Well, here, look, it seems to have gone down. Is that not going down?
But yeah, but I'm talking about those three dots at the very top.
Here?
Yeah.
But what's the trend? So as GDP is going up, do the points generally go up, down, not at all, going up or down, stay the same?
And then,
So they've kind of gone up a little bit, apart from this one is definitely lower. This one's definitely lower. All right, the lowest GDP has definitely got the lowest life expectancy. But then this one's right up there. It's not much different. All right. Potentially, I mean, you potentially could argue that is there much of a correlation at all? You might say weak, maybe. But actually, we could also argue that there isn't really much correlation at all, right? Now, whatever you choose to answer, I mean, you just have to justify that. Because like from here to here, it's definitely gone up, right? But from here is definitely, I think, potentially going down. Not much, but, well, is there much difference in a life expectancy? What's that, 83, 82, and that drops to 70? I mean, is a life expectancy dropping of like 3 or 4 years significant? Well, it is when you're trying to lose that. If you lose 4 years of your life, you might be like, actually, that's quite significant, yeah? So think about what it is, potentially, you know? This one down here is definitely richer than all of these countries, but has a much lower life expectancy. All right? This one here is the richest country by far, but look, it's not much higher than one of the poorest. So what I'm trying to get at here is there's a lot we could say. There's a lot of this, but maybe this, or this, or, you know, there's some things that we can interpret, but a scatter plot has not given me, in this case, a definite answer. I still have to interpret it, which is what statistics is all about. Form, strength, direction. So we've kind of gone form, is it linear? Pretty much. Strength, very weak, if at all. Yeah. Direction. Well, the fact that we can't say positive or negative probably means none, right? No correlation. So strength would be non-existent. So does there seem to be a relationship between a country's GDP and the average life expectancy of its citizens? So potentially, but not as big an impact as people might initially think. You know, so if we look at it, this one is richer and definitely higher life expectancy. So there could be a relationship. The ones with the highest GDP are definitely above the lowest, right? Definitely. So there is some relationship. But this one is twice as rich as that one. Well, it's not actually, because it's 100,000+ and this one's just under 60, so it's not twice, but big jump, but it's not anymore, right? No richer. So when we're talking about, is there a relationship? Again, where it says justify your answer, in an assessment, if your answer was yes or no, both of those answers could be correct if you give me a good justification. But if you just wrote an answer yes, I might agree with you, but I wouldn't give you any marks or any credit because you haven't justified it. Explain what the data seems to imply about what affects the lengths of the human experience. So this is looking at our global context of identities and relationships. So what do you think it's getting at? Explain the data seems to imply about the effects of the length of the human experience. And if anything, does the data suggest about the quality of the human experience? Do you know what they mean by that in terms of your global context? What do you think anything to do with human experience might be related to? Happiness. That would be a quality, yeah? What do you think length would be? How long we live, yeah? So what does the data seem to imply about the length of the human experience? Well, if we look at this, it's got nothing to do with how much money you have. What does it say about the quality of human experience? Nothing at all. All right? This graph hasn't told me anything about whether these people are happier or not. It's only told me. Now, do you think people would make assumptions about, oh, these people are obviously not as happy?
Yeah.
Because we just go, money means happy. Money means live longer. Now, this has already suggested that money doesn't mean live longer. Does it tell me anything about happiness? Not at all. So what we're learning there is don't make assumptions based on no evidence whatsoever. What do you think then, if it's not money, what do you think might affect life expectancy? Yeah. Yeah.
Diet.
Diet, definitely. Anything else?
Physical activity.
Physical activity. So this country down here, which country is it, by the way? So if we actually go back and look into this, Mozambique has that. Why do you think that one is poor and has a low life expectancy then? Do you think so? Do you know? I don't know. Again, we would have to look into this information. What this graph has done, it's made me go, maybe I should go and look into a bit of detail about Mozambique and find out why then. Because my graph suggests the money is not the issue. All right? Is Mozambique in Africa? We know there's some kind of issues. Yeah. So maybe there's things, corruption and stuff in the government, so the money they do have doesn't actually go anywhere. I'm interested. Anyone know about Cuba? So Cuba isn't the richest country in the world at all, is it? No, because of all the sanctions and things that the United States put on it. But their health system is one of the best. So their life expectancy would be high. Yeah? And actually, if you go to Cuba, they're all pretty happy. You know? So this happiness thing. So what are we gaining from this? Well, when we do a scatter plot, it's not the be-all and end-all. It's not an end to our statistical analysis. It gives me something to then, like if this graph was very clearly, oh, it's definitely money, then we could look into that a bit more. But all this graph does is say, maybe I've got to look into things a little bit more because money does not look like. So do you think the United States feeds into this, that money does not make you happy. Guys, please.
Yeah.
Why? What would be your reasons for that? Matthew?
Because it's like
Super rich. Is this the one, yeah? Is the USA... Qatar, actually.
Yeah, Qatar's airplane.
United States is same sort of... All right. Why don't you think Qatar... So it's got the highest income, but the life expectancy...
Because the government's rich, but not all the people.
Yeah.
It is kind of that, isn't it?
And buildings.
Do you know any of that? Plus, their life expectancy is still 79, 78. You know, there are other factors, aren't there? It's like the GDP is from oil and everything, but what does it get spent on? So what are your images of Qatar when you think of Qatar?
Beautiful buildings.
Buildings, cars, airlines, yeah. Ferraris parked out in the desert because people have, you know, just got sick of them and not bothered. The United States, look, their health system isn't exactly the best in the world, is it? No. So that's why, what's this one at 80? 37.
37,
Japan.
That makes sense.
they have a,
Why does it make sense?
because they have a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
What's good about it?
They eat
They
good,
eat
they
sushi.
exercise.
Old people
They eat
like
good
go out
food.
for walks
Yeah.
on mountains.
And do you think the philosophy of like the Japanese compared to the Americans in terms of what's important in life is a bit different?
Yeah.
Because I've been reading lots of things about, you know, American, like people saying, I was reading something today about how women that have had babies should have maternity care, so they should have 6 months off of work. But in America, there's no plan to allow that. They don't get paid, so they have to go back to work almost immediately. And a lot of women will get what depression afterwards, and they need to stay at home, stay with them. Otherwise, they get really depressed. But in America, they have to go back to work because they have to earn money. There's no, so that would affect happiness. It would affect life expectancy, all that kind of thing. Yeah. But America are perfectly rich, but Japan has a better, you know, lifestyle. They allow those sort of things. You live longer. Their GDP is not that much less. So, but you see what we're doing? We're starting to look into more details. This is just one part.